Welcome to our 2019 autumn catch-up with Damion Greef, Chief Executive of application analysis company Fedr8. Welcome back, Damion.
Good morning to you, Alan. Good morning to you.
Damion, can you provide a quick recap on what Fedr8 and the cloud market, or where Fedr8 and the cloud market is at right now?
It's very distinct to the end of your answer there. There's two questions. Fedr8 has moved on with our platform is a machine learning platform, so clearly the more work it does, the more intelligent it becomes, the more useful it becomes to our customers. Moving on to your second question, talking about the cloud market. It has really matured now, but we've really seen the three big players in the market. Your Google, your Amazons and your Microsofts. They used to be a line, the gorillas in the room. They really have taken ownership of the space. And we've got some smaller players trying to move in with infrastructure plays, trying to offer Me Too type of cloud environments, because there is a very good line to say all a cloud solution really is are a set of servers that don't belong to you and they're somewhere else.
Okay. So before we came in, we spoke about data centers. You said that data centers are closing and companies are moving to the cloud to reduce IT overheads. So Fedr8's Green Rain presumably provides a solution for this. Can you sort of elaborate on that?
I certainly can. What has happened that a bank or a large company, as I think I've said before in previous updates, they employ thousands of developers globally. They'll have data centers geographically spread, and their costs of delivering their IT, which are core to their businesses, running to the billions. So clearly economies of scale, we talked about the three major cloud providers. Economies of scale, these guys can provide compute and storage at a cheaper cost than even the very largest global companies can. So they've been trying to move workloads into the cloud, but they are encountering some issues. Lots of the easy to move applications, more modern applications, what we call COTS, common off-the-shelf applications, reside beautifully whether or not it's in your own server or whether it's sitting in the cloud somewhere, or maybe it's dispersed. It could be split amongst 2 or 3 different cloud locations where the data center actually reside. But we're seeing a sort of real carve up in the middle. You've got the older, more difficult applications that are still core to a business. They're still residing in those companies' data centers. They would like to move them, but there's an oft-used phrase, I'm not sure if it's correct, but they call it the black box. No one knows what's going on inside it, best leave it alone.
Mm-hmm. I understand that. So a lot of these old legacy applications and black boxes, as you say, those presumably have been just left behind, and it's a make and mend scenario.
Some of these black boxes are so key to the businesses. It's not so much left behind; they're being tended and looked after. They'll have a team of people that say we have ownership of this application. But there's also some reticence about moving that application, even if they think they understand it, because it's so key and core to a business that if they were to move it, the risk of failure, the risk of the unknown, if anything went wrong, the team that actually made the decision to actually move that core application or to rewrite it or to do any change to it, it's one of those kind of decisions that leaves you looking for a new job if you get it wrong.
Got it. Okay.
So clearly they're all, people are very reticent to make those kind of decisions.
I understand. So how does Fedr8's Green Rain solve this?
What we do, we will actually analyze an application. We're looking at the static source code. So if you strip away the data and what that application is actually doing, we're looking at the machine code and we're analyzing that source code, and we're looking for dependencies. So each cloud we have to have these kind of structures to make your application work well, and I would say reside gracefully within a cloud environment. And within 24 hours, we can go through 2 million lines of code and tell you what your application looks like, how it's working, how the frameworks are configured, what issues you might have if you want to move that to one of the 3 big cloud providers. And that task currently takes months and doesn't always give you the answers that you're after. You don't know how much it's going to cost. So Fedr8, within 24 hours, we will run your application through Green Rain, which is the name of our static source code analysis platform, and we'll give you those answers. Give you costing, how difficult it is, entanglement, and how difficult it's going to be to move to each of the 3 big cloud providers.
Okay.
So we're reducing the timeline, we're reducing the risk, and we're actually increasing your knowledge of how your application, the DNA of how it actually sits together.
And you mentioned to me beforehand that software as a service is now an accepted delivery mechanism?
It is. When we first, previous updates, we've talked about the Green Rain delivery mechanism, whereas the large companies, the big service, big systems integrators would have their own instance of Green Rain. It would sit on their own servers. They would then allow their customers to use their instance. And what we considered using our own instance, the software as a service, and we actually thought we were receiving a lot of pushback, the fear, we don't know where your data center is, we don't want to release our static source code, which they consider to be IP, out to you. But what we've seen over the last 12 months, we're seeing a real sea change. That resistance is evaporating, because you have to imagine that we're living in the cloud environment. Everything that we're using, as consumers, is residing somewhere in a cloud. So people understand the security implications, how secure it is. So actually having a software as a service delivery where Fedr8 has the instance of Green Rain, and then our customers come directly to us and we process it on our hardware, which can either be on one of the major clouds or on our own data center, that resistance has dissipated hugely. So there has been a sea change in how we're addressing the market ourselves.
So how are Fedr8 addressing the change in the market and reaching management tasked with this challenge?
What we're doing, and we're reaching out to the actual application owners and these, the mid-tier smaller companies who at the moment don't have access to all that information to remove the risk. So what we're doing, we've got an offer. We're saying if you send us your source code to run through Green Rain for breakfast by supper time of that day, that same day, we will have run Green Rain for you, and we're doing the first application for just £300. And that will give them all the answers. It's a low cost, and it will enable them to go, hey, we can do this as well.
This must be a huge market opportunity for you.
It is, but it's a very difficult one to quantify, because the large scale, global enterprise, the big research companies, they're speaking to them all the time, they understand the size of the market, but the market underneath that are a series of companies that are almost not on the radar of the survey and research companies. So we're not actually sure, apart from it is more than, it's about 80% of the global market is not enterprise.
Goodness me. That's a huge market. Damion, it's been great catching up with you again. Please come back soon and update us on progress, particularly with this new offer that you have in place now.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Okay, Damion Greef, Chief Executive of Fedr8, thank you for joining us today.